The 49ers just got demolished by the Bills 35-10 in what is a back-to-back blowout losses for the 49ers. Looking for answers, and that's really what it is. If you were to break down this season up to this point, I'd break it down into 4 words. The 49ers are broken. And it all starts with leadership. It all starts with Kyle. Kyle, who's supposed to be the offensive genius, the offensive guru, has managed to muster up 10 points in back-to-back games, while the defense has given up over 30 points in back-to-back games. And so the question has to be asked, where do you start? There are so many holes and issues with this team, not just with injuries. You can easily blame injuries for the way this team is performing, but the fact is they're playing with no heart. You're looking at missed tackles all over the board. You're looking at missed assignments. You're looking at people just out of position. You look at players that are getting paid tons of money that aren't producing. You got Deebo Samuel. Let's talk about Deebo. He is the most expensive kick returner in all of football. And he doesn't get paid to be a kick returner. He gets paid to be a wide receiver, or in his words, a wide back, and he's not even doing that. And in fact, you think he's having a decent game on the kick return side of the ball, and what does he do? He fumbles a kick return. And then you have Kyle Juszczyk, who fumbles on the 4-yard line, who's the most expensive fullback in the NFL. In fact, took a pay cut to stay with the 49ers and fumbles at the 4-yard line in what could have been a turning point in the game. But you know what? That fumble was just reminiscent of what the entire 49ers season has been like. A little bit of hope, only to fumble it right at the goal line. And then you have Christian McCaffrey going down. Christian McCaffrey had several big runs. It looked like he was turning into the CMC of old, and you see him almost break one out, lands on his knee, and then the very next play goes down, non-contact injury. Now, he could have hurt his knee on that play. You saw he kind of landed weird on that knee. But he went in with his right sock down with his calf exposed. Could have been the Achilles, could have torn a calf, could have done something else, ACL. You don't know. We don't have much information on that, but his season might be over. And that can be very much indicative of what the season has gone like. You have a little bit of hope. You're expecting players to come back, and that's when you're going to make your run, only for that to fall apart. Let's talk about what else looked bad. Purdy looked like the Purdy of 2022 or 2023 when he played against the Eagles after tearing his UCL. He did not look comfortable out there. Throwing was terrible. He had a couple passes to Juwan Jennings that were good, but he was all over the place. Defense couldn't stop the run. Nick Sorensen needs to go. That's one of the big things. It's just this defense is pedestrian. Everybody knows what they're running. Nick Sorensen has to go. You have Brandon Staley there. Get rid of Nick Sorensen, put Brandon Staley in. I'm not saying Staley's the long-term answer, but we know that Sorensen isn't the answer. Maybe it is bringing back Saleh. Maybe it's bringing somebody else in. But the reality is something has to change, especially after back-to-back games of giving up over 30 points and multiple missed tackles. I think Shanahan needs to hire an offensive coordinator. He clearly can't manage the game and call the offense at the same time. Yeah, well, he's done it before. Well, the league has figured him out. That's the reality. He needs an offensive coordinator so that it could still be his offense, but he needs to focus on the game management portion of the game, because that's where the 49ers are blowing it. Let's talk about Fred Warner. Fred Warner, I love Fred Warner. I'm a huge Fred Warner fan. The fact that we found out in week 4, he ended up fracturing his ankle and has played every week. He's taking injection shots before every game to play through the pain. You love that. It's a leader, captain. But a big but there is an asterisk. He should not be playing because he is harming the team more than he's helping the team. You look at the multiple missed tackles last week. He led the entire team in missed tackles. This week, it carried on. He was just being bullied by the offensive line. He was slow in running. In fact, multiple missed tackles again today. Yes, you could chalk that up to the snow. You could chalk it up to a few other things. Out of position on a couple of passes to the tight end. And I think Fred Warner just needs to get healthy. The season seems to potentially be over, even though mathematically they're not eliminated. There's 2 games back. They need some help, and honestly, just to win probably the rest of their games, which is probably not going to be possible. They're probably going to get blown out by the Lions. But the reality is Fred Warner needs to get healthy. He is playing with his fractured ankle, but he's not helping the team at all. Put D. Winters in his spot, put him next to Devondre Campbell, or if Greenlaw is healthy, put Greenlaw where Fred Warner goes and have Campbell play next to him or Winters. That's what you need to do. Fred Warner, as great as he is not as good when he's not healthy. And so we need to get healthy, and Fred Warner needs to do that. Don't risk a career-ending injury or something that's going to be troublesome for years to come. Now, let's talk about what looked good. Actually, one more player before we get to the what looked good. Jair Brown. Everybody thought after his rookie year that this is going to be next up-and-coming safety for the 49ers. In fact, you don't have to re-sign Talanoa Hufanga because you have Jair Brown and Malik Mustafa who are going to anchor the back end for years to come. Well, this year has been absolutely atrocious for Jair Brown. Call it a sophomore slump. I don't know what it is, but out of position, playing without any sort of fundamentals. Lack of effort when it comes to tackles. In fact, you look at multiple runs from the Bills, Jair Brown's just out of position and just poor tackling. And you have to wonder, is this a scheme issue with Sorensen? Is it just a sophomore slump? Or what is it? But it's inexcusable because Malik Mustafa, who's a rookie, is showing out. He was probably one of the few bright spots in the game. He had a great pass defense right in the end zone, even though the 49ers ended up giving up a touchdown in the very next play. On a fourth down, he ended up playing very well in this game. Jordan Mason had a good game. CMC had a good game outside of, hurting his ankle. He looked like the CMC of old. Jawan Jennings had a good game. Typically, you say Kittle would have a good game, but he even dropped a screen pass. Brock Purdy is not the Brock Purdy of old. Who is the equipment manager for the 49ers? It seemed like they didn't even have the right cleats. In between every single play, you have 49ers cleaning out the snow out of their cleats, and not one Bills player was doing that. It just seemed like the Bills were running at 90% speed while the 49ers were at 50% speed. Every time you would go in motion, you see somebody slip. I just think that this game was a physical representation of the entire season. And it's unfortunate because the 49ers have year in and year out been very good, been one of the top 4 teams in the entire NFL, made it to 4 straight NFC championship games. Multiple players are headed toward the latter parts of their career, and you want to see them get a ring. And it's starting to look like that window is going to be closed and a major rebuild probably needs to happen. Now, you're still going to keep some core players, but you need to figure out, is Purdy going to be one of those guys? Is Purdy going to be willing to take $30 million or less? If he's willing to take 35 or a Geno Smith type contract or Baker Mayfield type contract, you keep him around. If he's not and he wants the $50 to $60 million money, maybe you have to move on and go trade for a Kirk Cousins or something like that. The reality is he needs players around him, and with all the injuries that are going on, he hasn't been able to help carry this team. And it's almost a blessing in disguise when you think about it. I'm a huge Brock Purdy fan, but it's a blessing in disguise because with a lot of these star players that are out, that's kind of what the future seasons are going to be like. You can't afford to pay all these stars if you're going to be paying $60 million a year for Brock Purdy. And so to see, can he carry this team when those stars are out? And so far what we've seen is he can't. Now you can chalk that up to poor defense. You could chalk that up to poor game management by Kyle. You can chalk that up to a bunch of other things. But the reality is he is not worth $60 million a year. Now, even though that's the going market, you have guys like Geno and Baker that are taking less money, taking around 30 to 40 million. That's something I'd probably be comfortable paying Brock Purdy, but not 60. And so you need to be able to build a team around Brock Purdy, and he needs to be willing to take less. And this game, this season, is indicative of that because Brock Purdy wasn't able to do much of anything in this game. And so this game was really unfortunate, especially if you're a 49er fan, because you saw all over the news networks. You even had Tony Dungy, you had Richard Sherman that were saying, this isn't the 49ers we know. We think that they're going to show out today on Sunday Night Football. And they did the complete opposite. In fact, they collapsed on national TV, which is unfortunate because on PrimeTime, you hope that they're going to bring out their best, and that's not what happened. Kyle Shanahan looks like he's daring ownership to fire him. It looks like this team has given up on the season, and they say one thing to the media, but the way they play is completely different. So they have a long flight back home. They have 3 winnable games before facing the Lions. They play the Bears, I believe, the Rams, and then the Dolphins, and then they'll go ahead and play the Bears. So, yeah. Or then they'll go ahead and play the Lions. So you got the Bears, you got the Rams, Dolphins, and then the Lions. So 3 winnable games. And who knows what's going to happen? Are they going to give up already? Or are they going to go ahead and say, you know what, let's win these next 3 games. They are winnable games. And see if we can get some help from the rest of the division. While the season isn't mathematically over, it seems like they've already thrown in the towel. But we'll see what this team's made of as the year goes on. Has Kyle lost the locker room? Or are they going to say, you know what, we have some pride and we're going to finish the season strong and not end with a losing record? We're going to end 10-7 or 9-8. And so I think 10-7 gives you a mathematical chance to make the playoffs. 9-7, you're not making it. But we'll see what happens. But a lot to learn. We'll see what the injury is for Christian McCaffrey. But I was way off. So I had predicted this game would be 34-24. 34-24, the 49ers would win. Yes, I was picking with my heart more so than my head. But it was 35-10, and the 49ers just didn't show up. And so we'll see what happens. Obviously, this isn't the team that I expected, but you know what? Stranger things have happened, and this season isn't over yet. That's the thing about the NFL. It's not for long. So that means this team can turn it around. I'm hopeful for that, but I also don't want to think with my heart. Instead, I want to think with my head. And what the 49ers have shown is that they are what their record is, and that is 5-7. That means they are not even average. They are below average. And so we'll see what the flight back does. We'll see what practice holds, and if this team can turn it around, play with some pride. But that's all we have for today. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you this week as we learn more about Christian McCaffrey and where the injuries are for Nick Bosa, for Brock Purdy, and CMC going forward. We'll catch you next time.